Before we dive into tonight's tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more creepy stories that will keep you up at night. So imagine New Orleans during Mardi Gras. It's alive, man, like the city's got a pulse of its own. The French Quarter's buzzing, packed with folks hollering and laughing, beads flying through the air like some kind of colorful hailstorm. You can hear the clatter of plastic hitting the cobblestones, the brassy wail of trumpets cutting through the humid night. It's chaos, but the good kind, until it isn't. Inside this little jazz club tucked off Bourbon Street, the vibe's warm and smoky. The walls are plastered with old posters, peeling at the edges, and the air's thick with the smell of spilled beer and cigarette stubs ground into the floorboards. Claude's behind the bar, working his magic. He's this wiry guy, maybe mid-30s, with a grin that could charm the devil himself. He's flipping bottles, pouring shots of bourbon with a flick of his wrist, chatting up the crowd like he's known them forever. "Y'all want another round? Don't tell me Mardi Gras wore you out already," he calls out, voice cutting through the chatter. He's good at this, making folks forget their troubles. But if you look close, there's a tightness around his eyes. His brother went down in Katrina, swallowed by the floodwaters, and Claude's been carrying that weight ever since. He doesn't talk about it, though, just keeps that smile plastered on like it's armor. Over at the bar, Sophie's perched on a stool, nursing a hurricane in one of those tall, curvy glasses. She's got this quiet way about her, a nurse from Ohio with hazel eyes that don't quite meet yours. Her fingers keep drifting to this little silver locket hanging around her neck. She's rubbing it like it's a lifeline. She's here on her first trip since the storm took her daughter Lily. You can tell she's not really in the party mood. She's just watching the crowd swirl around her, and the ice clinking in her glass as it melts. Every now and then, she mutters something under her breath, maybe to herself, maybe to Lily, like she's still working through that ache. Outside, just beyond the club's foggy windows, Ray's posted up on the sidewalk, his saxophone case open for tips. He's this lanky dude, all elbows and knees, with a faded fedora tipped back on his head. His fingers dance over the keys, sending out this soulful, mournful tune that weaves into the night air. Folks toss coins his way, clink, clink, clink against the velvet lining, but he barely looks up. Ray's got his own ghosts. He lifted some cash from his cousin's widow after the guy drowned in the flood. Not proud of it, but hunger makes you do dumb things. He just keeps playing, letting the music drown out the guilt. Inside, over in the corner, there's Father Leon. He's this stern-looking guy, sitting stiff as a board, dressed in a long black coat that's way too heavy for the sticky Louisiana heat. He's got a glass of water in front of him, no ice, just sitting there sweating on the table. Calls himself a priest, but there's something off about him. His hands are too rough, his jaw too set, and those dark eyes of his keep flicking around the room like he's sizing everyone up. He's not here for the party, that's for damn sure. He takes a slow sip, the glass clinking against his teeth, and you can almost feel the weight of whatever he's hiding. Then the door bangs open, and in stumbles Tessa. She's a mess. Wild hair sticking to her face, clothes streaked with dark, wet mud that smells like the swamp. She's dragging this beat-up duffel bag behind her, the zipper half busted, and her breath hits you from across the room, sharp, like she's been chugging whiskey straight from the bottle. "Gimme a drink," she barks, shoving her way to the bar. Claude raises an eyebrow but slides her a shot of something cheap, watching her knock it back without even flinching. She's jittery, her hands trembling as she wipes her mouth with the back of her sleeve, muttering something about needing to lay low. Nobody asks questions. Yet. It's right around 10 p.m. when everything shifts. The club's humming along, glasses clinking, laughter bouncing off the walls, when suddenly every phone in the place starts buzzing at once. It's that eerie, high-pitched EAS tone. You know the one, makes your stomach drop. People fumble for their screens and the message pops up. Gas leak in the lower 9th Ward. Toxic levels detected. Quarantine enforced. Do not approach French Quarter perimeter. The words hang there, glowing in the dim light, and for a second, nobody moves. Then the sirens kick in outside, long wailing howls cutting through the jazz and the chatter. You can hear boots pounding the pavement, cops shouting orders, metal scraping as barricades go up. The club's owner, this big guy named Lou with a sweaty bald head, hustles over to the door. "Ain't nobody leaving till this blows over," he grumbles, turning the deadbolt with a heavy clunk. Claude leans over the bar, peering out the window as red and blue lights flash across his face. "Well, shit," he says, forcing a laugh. "Guess the party's here now, huh?" But that grin of his slips a little as he straightens up, brushing his hands on his apron like he's trying to shake off the weirdness creeping in. Sophie sets her glass down, too hard, it thumps against the wood, and glances around, her fingers tightening on that locket. "This can't be happening," she whispers, more to herself than anyone else. Ray's still outside, but he stops playing, the last note hanging in the air as he squints toward the barricades down the street. He slings his sacks over his shoulder and ducks inside, brushing past Tessa, who's still hunched over her empty shot glass. "What's the word, man?" he asks Claude, voice low, like he's not sure he wants the answer. Before Claude can respond, there's this faint hiss, like air leaking from a tire, and a thin curl of green mist starts seeping under the doorframe. It's slow at first, just a wisp, but it stinks sulfur, sharp enough to make your eyes water. Lou coughs, waving a meaty hand in front of his face. "What the hell is that?" he snaps, stomping over to check the lock. Tessa jerks upright, her duffel bag sliding off her lap with a dull thud. "That ain't no gas leak," she mutters, her voice shaky, but nobody catches it over the rising noise. Then the lights flicker, once, twice, buzzing like angry wasps in the fixtures overhead. Claude freezes, a bottle of gin halfway to the shelf as the power stutters. The jukebox in the corner, this old beat-up thing that hasn't worked in weeks, suddenly crackles to life. No one's touched it, no plugs even in the wall, but it starts spinning out this warped jazz tune, slow, dragging like the record's melting. The notes twist and bend, sounding wrong, unfamiliar. Ray's head snaps toward it, his sack still dangling from its strap. "That ain't my song," he says, stepping closer, his boots scuffing the floor. "I never played nothing like that." The room's getting quieter now, folks hushing each other, straining to listen. Underneath that creepy jukebox hum, there's something else, a low, rhythmic thump, vibrating through the walls. It's steady, like a heartbeat, but too loud, too deep to be human. Father Leon sets his water down, the glass rattling slightly against the table, and folds his hands in front of him, calm as anything. Sophie's breath hitches, her knuckles white around that locket. "I should have stayed home," she says under her breath, barely audible over the growing unease. Claude forces another laugh, but it's thin, brittle. "All right, y'all, just a little hiccup. Who's up for another round?" He's trying to keep it light, but his hands fumble as he grabs a rag to wipe the bar, his eyes darting to that green mist pooling along the floor. Outside, the sirens are fading, swallowed by the night, and the festive shouts from earlier? They're gone. Just that damn jukebox and that thudding pulse, wrapping around the club like a noose. Whatever's coming, it's already here, and these folks, they're stuck right in the middle of it. So, the club's gone quiet now, too quiet, like the air's holding its breath. The handful of patrons left are bunched up near the bar, shoulder to shoulder, their eyes darting between the windows and that damn mist creeping thicker outside. It's not just a wisp anymore. It's rolling in slow waves, pressing against the glass like it's trying to find a way through. The sulfur stinks heavier too, stinging your nose, making your throat itch. Claude's still got that rag in his hand, twisting it absently as he paces behind the bar, his boots scuffing the worn floor. "Somebody's got to know what's happening out there," he mutters, half to himself, half to the room. He glances at Lou, the owner, who's slumped against a stool, mopping his sweaty forehead with a handkerchief. "You hear anything from the cops, man?" Lou shakes his head, the folds of his neck jiggling. "Radios went dead 10 minutes ago," he grunts, voice rough from years of shouting over crowds. "Last I heard was static, then nothing." He fumbles with his phone, jabbing at the screen, but it's just a blank glow, no signal, no bars. The rest of them check theirs too, fingers swiping in that desperate way people do when they're hoping for a miracle. Nothing. Sophie's still perched on her stool, her hurricane glass forgotten, condensation pooling on the bar. She's staring at the mist, her lips moving silently, like she's praying, or maybe arguing with herself. Ray's over by one of the windows, his sack still slung across his back. He's got his palms pressed against the glass, peering out into the fog, his breath fogging up little patches. "What the hell?" He trails off, voice barely above a whisper, and then he stumbles back hard, like something shoved him. His sack swings forward and clatters against a table, the metal keys jangling loud in the hush. "Y'all see that?" he says, louder now, pointing a shaky finger. Claude's at his side in a second, squinting out into the murk. At first, it's just shapes, blurry outlines swaying in the mist. Then they get clearer, and your stomach drops right along with Claude's face. They're people, or they were. Shuffling through the fog, these figures look like they crawled out of a nightmare. They're decked out in Mardi Gras gear, feathered masks, sequined vests, beads dangling off bony shoulders. But it's all wrong. The costumes are tattered, hanging off them in wet, muddy strips like they've been underwater for years. Their faces, God, their faces are gray and sunken, and their mouths, they're sewn shut, black thread zigzagging through cracked lips. But the worst part? They're whispering. It's faint at first, a low hiss that blends with the mist, but it's all in sync, like a chant. Claude bangs on the door, fists pounding the wood so hard the frame rattles. "Hey, somebody out there! Help us!" he yells, voice cracking with desperation. But the street's dead, no sirens, no cop chatter, just that whispering growing louder, seeping through the cracks. Tessa's still at the bar, her duffel bag clutched tight against her chest now. She's trembling, her muddy boots tapping a nervous rhythm on the floor. "They're here for me," she rasps, her voice rough and low, like she's choking on the words. Claude spins around, wiping sweat off his brow with the back of his hand. "What'd you say?" He snaps, stepping closer. She doesn't answer right away, just hugs that bag tighter, her knuckles white. Father Leon's on his feet now, moving slow and deliberate like a cat stalking something. He reaches into that heavy coat of his and pulls out this curved knife, long, wicked-looking, with strange symbols scratched into the blade. It's no priest's tool, that's for damn sure. He points it at Tessa, his voice cold and sharp. "Speak, girl. What did you do?" The room's eyes are on her now, Sophie's wide and scared, Ray's narrowing, even Lou's leaning in, his handkerchief forgotten. Tessa's chest heaves, her breath hitching as she fumbles with the bag's busted zipper. "I didn't know, all right," she says, voice rising. "I took something 2 days ago out in the swamp. Thought it was just some junk to pawn off." She yanks the bag open and pulls out this thing, a bone-carved idol, small enough to fit in your hand, but heavy-looking. Its surface is smooth, polished, with these glassy eyes that catch the flickering light and throw it back at you. "Stole it from some old woman out in the Bayou," Tessa admits, her words tumbling out fast. "She was chanting over it, but I didn't think. I just grabbed it and ran." Claude snatches it from her, turning it over in his hands. "This? You brought this here?" he says, incredulous, holding it up like it's a live grenade. Ray steps closer, wiping his palms on his jeans, and peers at it. "Looks old," he mutters, "real old." He slings his sacks off his shoulder, gripping it like a security blanket, and blows a few shaky notes, just a quick riff to steady his nerves. The whispering outside stops, like someone hit pause, and for a second, the air feels lighter. But then he fumbles, the tune breaking, and that chant roars back, louder, angrier, rattling the windows in their frames. Overhead, the chandelier starts swaying, slow at first, creaking on its chain. The bulbs flicker, then pop, one by one, sharp little explosions that send glass raining down. Sophie yelps, ducking as shards scatter across the bar, tinkling against her empty glass. Claude swears under his breath, brushing fragments off his apron. Then, cutting through that whispering mess, comes this voice, soft, high-pitched, almost sing-song. "Mama, let me in." It's clear as day, floating above the chaos, and Sophie freezes. Her face goes pale, like all the blood's drained out of her, and her hand flies to that locket. "That's Lily," she whispers, barely audible, her eyes locked on the door. She's up in a flash, stumbling over her stool. It tips and clatters to the floor as she lunges for the exit. "Lily, baby, I'm coming," she cries, her voice breaking. Claude's faster, though. He grabs her around the waist, hauling her back just as her fingers graze the deadbolt. "Sophie, stop!" he shouts, his arms trembling as she thrashes against him. "It's not her, you hear me? It's not!" His voice cracks. He knows this pain too well, that desperate hope that drags you under. She's sobbing now, clawing at his hands, but he holds tight, his jaw clenched so hard you can see the muscles jump. Ray's staring at them, his sacks dangling loose, forgotten. "What the hell's going on, man?" he says, looking from Sophie to Tessa, who shrunk back against the bar, her bag spilling half its contents, dirty socks, a crumpled pack of smokes, onto the floor. Father Leon lowers that knife, but his grip stays firm, his eyes boring into Tessa. "You've brought a curse here," he says, voice like gravel, "and it's waking things that should have stayed buried." The whispering's a full-on chorus now, pressing in from every side, words you can't quite catch but feel in your bones. Sophie slumps in Claude's grip, her sobs quieting to shaky breaths, and he eases her back onto the stool, his hands still unsteady. Tessa's secret's out, and it's like a crack splitting through the group. Ray's muttering to himself, pacing a tight circle, his boots scuffing louder now. "This ain't right. This ain't right," he keeps saying, like a mantra. Lou's glaring at Tessa, his meaty fists balled up like he's ready to swing. Claude's still holding that idol, staring at those glassy eyes, and you can see the gears turning. He's trying to figure out how to fix this, but the truth is, he's got no clue. Outside, those shambling figures are closer now, their sewn-up mouths twitching, and that heartbeat thudding through the walls. It's picking up, sinking with the whispers, pulling them all deeper into whatever hell Tessa's dragged them into. The club's a fortress now, or at least they're trying to make it one. Claude's barking orders, his voice hoarse as he shoves a heavy oak table toward the door. "Come on! Move it! We gotta block this thing!" he yells, sweat dripping down his temples. Ray's right there with him, grunting as he drags a chair across the floor, its legs screeching against the wood. Lou's hauling another table, his big frame wheezing with every step, muttering curses under his breath. "Damn fools, locking us in with this shit." The other patrons, 3 of them still hanging on, a couple of wide-eyed locals and a tourist in a tacky Mardi Gras shirt, pitch in, stacking chairs and shoving whatever they can find against the entrance. The wood groans as those things outside, start scratching at it, a slow, deliberate scrape that sets your teeth on edge. The whispers are sharper now, forming words that slither through the cracks. "Give her back," over and over, like a broken record from hell. Claude steps back, wiping his hands on his apron, chest heaving as he surveys their shaky barricade. "That's gotta hold," he says, but it sounds more like a plea than a promise. The mist's still seeping in, curling around their ankles now, and that sulfur stinks so thick you can taste it. Bitter, choking. Father Leon moves into the center of the room, slow and steady like he's got all the time in the world. He's still clutching that curved knife, the symbols on it catching the dim light from a flickering bulb overhead. "Enough of this," he says, voice cold as a winter ditch. "You're all wasting your breath." He turns that hard gaze on them, and there's no trace of the priest act left, just a man with a job to do. Claude squares up, fists clenched. "The hell you mean, wasting our breath? Who are you anyway?" Father Leon doesn't flinch, just tilts his head, lips curling into something that's not quite a smile. "I'm no priest," he says, letting the words hang there. "I work for the priestess, the one that drunk fool stole from." He jerks his chin at Tessa, who's crouched by the bar, her duffel bag clutched tight like a shield. "She took the idol, broke the seal. That gas out there? That's the Loa's breath. Spirits of the Bayou, waking up the dead to take what's theirs. New Orleans has sins to pay for, and I'm here to see it through." The room goes still, save for that scratching at the door and the heartbeat thudding through the walls. Ray's leaning against a table, his sack still in hand, staring at Leon like he's trying to decide if he's crazy or dangerous or both. "You're saying this is some kind of voodoo payback?" he asks, voice rough, wiping sweat off his brow with his sleeve. Leon nods, slow and deliberate. "Tessa unleashed it. I'm just the collector. The dead want their due." Sophie's still on her stool, rocking slightly, her fingers white around that locket. She's barely listening. Her eyes are locked on the door like she's waiting for something. Ray shakes his head, muttering, "This is nuts," but he slings his sacks up anyway. "All right, screw it. Let's see if this still works." He takes a deep breath, steadies himself, and starts playing, a steady riff, smooth and soulful, pouring out of him like a lifeline. The scratching slows, the whispers falter, and for a second it's like the air clears, just a little. But he's pouring everything into it, sweat beading on his forehead, his fingers trembling on the keys. Claude watches, jaw tight, like he's willing it to work. "Keep it going, man," he says, voice low, clapping Ray on the shoulder. Tessa's on her feet now, wild-eyed, clutching that idol Claude dropped earlier. "We gotta get rid of it," she shouts, voice cracking as she staggers forward. "Smash it, break it, something." She raises it over her head, aiming for the floor, but the second her hands tighten around it, she screams, sharp and raw, dropping it like it's a hot coal. The idol hits the ground with a dull thud, unbroken, and Tessa's cradling her palms, red welts blooming across her skin. "It burned me," she gasps, stumbling back into the bar, knocking over a stack of coasters that scatter like leaves. Claude lunges for the idol, scooping it up, careful this time, using his apron, and sets it on the counter, glaring at Tessa. "What else you hiding, huh? You're killing us here!" Before she can answer, that voice cuts through again, soft, chilling, right through the whispers. "Mama, I'm cold." It's Lily's voice, clear as a bell, and Sophie's head snaps up, her face twisting with something between hope and terror. "Lily?" She breathes, shoving off the stool so fast it topples again, crashing against the floor. She's at the door in 2 strides, clawing at the barricade, shoving at the tables. "She's out there! I have to get her!" Claude's on her in an instant, grabbing her arms, pulling her back. "Sophie, no!" he yells, but she's fighting him hard, her nails raking across his cheek, 3 sharp lines that well up red. Ray drops his sax mid-note, the music cutting off, and rushes over, grabbing her other arm. "Lady, stop! You're gonna bust it open!" The whispers surge back, louder, angrier, as the dead start pounding now, not just scratching, but hammering at the wood. Sophie's a mess, thrashing and sobbing, but Claude and Ray wrestle her back, pinning her against the bar. "She's gone, damn it!" Claude snaps, his voice breaking as blood trickles down his cheek. "You're gonna get us all killed." She collapses then, sliding to the floor, her sobs muffled against her knees. Ray steps back, breathing hard, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I saw him out there too," he admits, voice barely above a whisper. "My cousin, drowned back in 2005. He was looking right at me." He rubs his face like he's trying to scrub the image away and picks up his sax again, but his hands are shaking too bad to play. The club's falling apart around them now. The mirrors along the walls, old, cloudy things framed in chipped gold, start fogging up like someone's breathing on them from the other side. Then these small handprints appear, pressing into the glass, smearing the mist. One of the patrons, this middle-aged woman with a beaded necklace, lets out a shriek, pointing at her reflection. "It moved!" she cries, backing into a table so hard it tips, spilling empty bottles that roll and clink across the floor. Claude spins around just in time to see it. Her reflection winks at her, slow and deliberate, then fades into the fogged-up glass. "What the?" he mutters, stepping closer, but the mirror's empty now, just a swirl of mist. Lou's pacing now, muttering, we're done for," while Tessa's slumped against the bar, staring at her burned hands. Father Leon's still standing there, knife in hand, watching it all like he's above it. "The Loa don't bargain," he says, almost casual. "They take what's owed." The pounding's louder, the barricade creaking under the weight, and those whispers, "Give her back," are drilling into their heads. Sophie's curled up, clutching her locket, whispering Lily's name like a prayer. Ray's faith in his music's cracking. He's gripping that sax like it's all he's got left, but he can't bring himself to play. Claude wipes the blood off his cheek, his eyes darting between the door and the idol, and you can see it. Paranoia's sinking its claws in deep. The dead are right there, inches away, and this group's trust is shredding faster than the wood holding them in. The club's a damn war zone now. That scratching at the door turns into a deafening crash as one of the windows, big, old, framed in warped wood, shatters inward. Glass sprays across the room, sharp little shards skittering over the floorboards like ice on a frozen lake. The dead are through, clawing their way in, their bony hands groping at the air. Up close, they're worse than you imagined. Those sewn-up mouths are splitting open, the black thread snapping apart to show jagged, broken teeth, yellowed and sharp. The whispers turn into this guttural rasp, like they're choking on their own words. And the smell, God, it's rot and swamp mud mixed with that sulfur stink, hitting you like a punch. Ray's back on his feet, sax in hand, his fedora knocked crooked from the scramble. He's playing now, desperate and wild, blasting out this jagged riff that's more scream than song. His fingers fly over the keys, slick with sweat, and it's working, just barely. The dead slow down, their movements jerky like puppets with half-cut strings. But Ray's fading fast, his breath's coming in short, ragged gasps, and a thin trickle of blood starts leaking from his nose, dripping down his chin, staining the collar of his shirt. I got this, he mutters over and over, but his eyes are wild, pupils blown wide with panic. Claude's already moving, grabbing Ray by the arm. You're done, man. Come on, he shouts, voice rough as he hauls him toward the back. Father Leon's right behind, that knife still gripped tight, his coat flapping as he strides through the chaos. They stumble into the cramped back room, stocked shelves lined with dusty bottles, a mop leaning in the corner, the air stale and heavy. Claude's eyes dart around, landing on this rusted gas line snaking along the wall behind the bar. It's old, patched with tape in spots, but it's something. We can use this, he says, kneeling down, running his hands along the pipe. Rig it up, blow these bastards sky high. He's talking fast, adrenaline pumping, wiping blood and sweat off his cheek where Sophie scratched him earlier. Father Leon leans against the doorframe, watching with that cold, detached stare. Fire might work, he says, voice flat, like he's commenting on the weather. But it won't stop what's coming. Claude ignores him, yanking a toolbox from under a shelf. Screwdrivers and wrenches clatter out as he digs for something useful. Ray slumps against the wall, clutching his sax, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Keep 'em off us, huh? He croaks, nodding toward the main room where the dead are still clawing past the broken window, their whispers rising into a snarl. Out there, Tessa's losing it. She's pacing near the bar, her muddy boots leaving smeared tracks, her burned hands twitching at her sides. The barricade's buckling now, tables shifting, chairs toppling as the dead shove harder. She spins around, wild-eyed, and locks onto Sophie, who's still slumped by the bar, her locket dangling loose. It's you, Tessa screams, voice shrill, lunging forward. She grabs Sophie by the shoulders, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Take her instead. She's what they want. She shoves Sophie toward the window hard, her voice cracking with panic. Sophie stumbles, catching herself on a stool, and swings back. Her fist connects with Tessa's jaw, a dull thwack that sends Tessa reeling. Get off me, Sophie yells, her own voice raw, shoving Tessa away. In the scuffle, Tessa's grip slips, and that idol, still sitting on the bar, tumbles to the floor. It hits with a sharp crack, a hairline fracture splitting across its bone surface, and the room changes fast. The mist outside surges in, thick and choking, flooding through the broken window like a living thing. It's not just sulfur now, it's cold, damp, wrapping around your throat like wet hands. Tessa freezes, staring at the cracked idol, her breath hitching. Father Leon lets out this low, bitter laugh, stepping back into the main room. You've just fed them, he says, almost amused. The priestess promised me immunity, long as I gave her a sacrifice. Looks like you're making my job easy. He moves quick then, darting to the back room door and slamming it shut. The lock clicks, a heavy final sound, and Claude's on the other side in an instant, pounding the wood. Open it, you son of a bitch, he roars, but Leon's already sliding a chair under the knob, wedging it tight. You're on your own, he calls through the door, voice muffled but smug. Ray's coughing now, the mist burning his lungs, his sack slipping from his hands to clatter on the floor. Claude, we're screwed, he wheezes, sliding down the wall, blood smearing a streak on the plaster. Back in the main room, the dead are everywhere, crawling over the barricade, their jagged teeth snapping, and they're talking now, mimicking voices that cut deep. One turns to Claude, its head cocked at a wrong angle, and rasps in his brother's voice. Claude, you left me to die. Another, draped in soggy beads, fixes on Ray and hisses. You stole her last dime, in his cousin's drawl. Sophie's frozen near the window, her breath shallow, as this figure steps into view, small, draped in a glittering mask like the one Lily wore that Mardi Gras before the storm. It presses its gray face to the glass, those sewn lips splitting to whisper, Mama, I forgive you. It's soft, tender, and it hits Sophie like a knife. Her hand reaches out, trembling, her eyes glassy with tears. Lily, she breathes, stepping closer, the mist swirling around her legs. Claude's there in a heartbeat, yanking her back just as her fingers brush the frame. "It's not her," he shouts, voice breaking as he pulls her into his chest. "I lost mine too, Sophie. I know it's not real. We fight this together, you hear me?" She's shaking, clinging to his shirt, her nails digging into the fabric, but she nods, just barely. The figure at the window tilts its head, whispering again, but Claude's glaring at it, his jaw set, daring it to keep going. Tessa's alone now, backed into a corner, her betrayal hanging heavy. The other patrons are gone, either hiding or lost to the mist, and she's clutching her jaw where Sophie hit her, eyes darting between the dead and the group she just screwed over. "I didn't mean," she starts, but it's weak, drowned out by the snarling chorus. Claude shoots her a look, pure venom, and turns back to Sophie, steadying her. Ray's still slumped in the back, coughing blood, his sacks lying useless. Father Leon's perched by the locked door, watching like a vulture, and the mist's so thick now you can barely see the walls. The dead are closing in, their voices twisting every guilt, every regret, and this group splintered, fear and lies ripping them apart faster than those claws ever could. The back room's a sweatbox now, the air thick with mist and the sharp tang of rum. Claude's crouched by that rusty gas line, his hands moving fast, too fast, almost dropping the lighter as he fumbles with it. Come on," he mutters, flicking the wheel until a tiny flame sputters to life, dancing in the gloom. Ray's beside him, still woozy, blood crusted under his nose, but he's tipping a bottle of cheap rum over the pipe, letting it splash and puddle on the floor. "This better work, man," he rasps, voice shot from coughing, his hands shaking so bad the bottle clinks against the metal. They've rigged a bomb, or at least they hope so, a desperate duct tape and prayer kind of plan to burn this nightmare out. Claude glances at him, wiping sweat off his brow with a bloody sleeve. "It's gotta. We're out of moves." Out in the main room, it's hell breaking loose. The dead are swarming now, spilling over the busted barricade, their jagged teeth snapping at the air. That whispering's turned into a deafening chant, words you can't make out but feel in your chest, like a drumbeat from the grave. They're everywhere, gray hands clawing at the walls, beads and feathers shedding off their rotting costumes. Sophie's back on her feet, staggering away from the window where that lily thing was, her eyes wide and frantic. She spots Ray's sacks lying there on the floor, abandoned in the chaos, and snatches it up. "I can do this," she says, more to herself than anyone, her voice trembling as she brings it to her lips. She blows, a shaky, off-key note that wobbles out, but it hits something. The dead freeze for a split second, their heads twitching like they're confused, buying a few precious breaths. Claude hears it from the back, his head snapping up. "Keep going, Sophie," he shouts, voice cutting through the roar. He's got the lighter steady now, the flame licking at a rag they've stuffed into the gas line's cracked valve. Ray's leaning heavy against the wall, one hand braced on his knee, watching the rum-soaked floor like it's about to betray them too. But out there, Father Leon's making his move. He's got that curved knife out, the blade glinting as he stalks toward Tessa, who's huddled near the bar, her jaw still red from Sophie's punch. "You're the offering," he says, cold and matter-of-fact, and before she can scramble away, he drives the knife into her shoulder. Quick, clean, a wet thunk as it sinks in. Tessa screams, sharp and ragged, blood blooming dark through her muddy shirt. "You bastard!" she chokes out, clutching the wound, red seeping between her fingers as she staggers back. Leon yanks the blade free, wiping it on his coat like it's nothing. "Blood for the Loa," he says, stepping aside as if he's presenting her to the dead. But they don't even glance her way. Their hollow eyes are locked on Sophie, who's still blowing those shaky notes, her hands trembling so hard the sax wobbles. Tessa slumps against the bar, panting, her good hands scrabbling for the cracked idol lying a few feet away. She grabs it, wincing as it burns her again, and stares at that glowing fracture, realization hitting her like a freight train. "It's her," she mutters, voice thick with pain and fury. "It's tied to her, Lily, Katrina, all of it. She's what they're after." The dead shift then, moving as one, their chant swelling into something almost reverent. They scoop up handfuls of beads scattered across the floor, plastic strands snapped in the chaos, and shuffle toward Sophie. She drops the sacks, the note dying with a weak huff as they close in. One of them, a tall figure in a shredded purple cape, drapes a string of beads over her head, slow and deliberate, like she's being crowned. "Queen," they rasp, voices overlapping, and their cold fingers latch onto her arms, tugging her toward the door. She's too stunned to fight at first, her feet dragging, the locket swinging loose against her chest. Claude's out of the back room in a flash, lighter still burning in his hand. "Sophie." "No," he yells, sprinting across the room, shoving past a dead thing that swipes at him with brittle nails. He grabs her wrist, pulling hard, but they're strong, stronger than they look, and he's wrestling against a wall of gray flesh. "Ray, help me!" he shouts, and Ray stumbles out, grabbing a broom from the corner and swinging it wild, cracking it across a skull that doesn't even flinch. The fuse is lit now, the rags smoldering, a thin trail of smoke curling up from the gas line, and Claude knows they've got seconds. He locks eyes with Sophie, his voice breaking. "You're enough, all right? Lily wouldn't want this. Stay with me." She's crying, clinging to his arm, caught between the pull of the dead and his grip, her whole body shaking. Father Leon's watching from the sidelines, that smug look back on his face, but Tessa's not done. Bleeding and furious, she crawls toward the idol, clutching it tight despite the pain, her eyes hollowed out with rage. The dead ignore her, too focused on their queen. Then it happens. The gas line catches, a low whoosh as the flame races along the rum trail, and the explosion rips through the club. It's a roar of heat and light, fire swallowing the dead in a wave, their tattered costumes flaring up like dry grass. The blast knocks Claude and Sophie back, slamming them against the bar. Bottles crash and shatter around them, glass crunching underfoot. Ray's not so lucky. A charred hand, still twitching, grabs his ankle mid-stumble, yanking him into the blaze. He yells, a short, sharp cry, before the flames take him, his sacks hitting the floor with a final, mournful clang. The fire's roaring now, licking up the walls, and the dead, or what's left of them, start humming. It's this eerie jazz melody, warped and slow, rising over the crackle of burning wood. Claude's got Sophie shielded, his arms wrapped tight around her, coughing as smoke stings his lungs. "We're getting out," he says, voice raw, dragging her toward the busted window where the mist is thinning. She's clinging to him, tears streaking her face, whispering, "Lily, I'm sorry," over and over, but she's moving with him now, fighting to live. Tessa's crawling the other way, idol in hand, blood trailing behind her like a slug's path. She's muttering to herself, something about fixing this, but her eyes are empty, like she's already half gone. The club's a furnace, beams groaning overhead, and that humming fades as the last of the dead collapse into ash. Claude kicks out the window frame, glass crunching under his boot, and pulls Sophie through, both of them gasping as they hit the cool night air. Behind them, the fire's still raging, swallowing everything, the idol, the dead, and whatever's left of Ray. Tessa's gone too, lost somewhere in the smoke, clutching that cracked relic like it's her last lifeline. The whispers are silent now, but the weight of what just happened hangs heavy, pressing down on them as they stumble away from the ruin. The fire's finally out as dawn breaks over New Orleans, painting the sky this bruised mix of orange and gray. The club, what's left of it, is a blackened skeleton, charred beams jutting up like broken bones, the air still thick with the smell of burnt wood and melted plastic. Claude and Sophie stumble out through that busted window, their clothes singed, soot streaked across their faces. He's got his arm around her, half supporting, half leaning, his boots crunching over glass and ash as they hit the street. She's clutching his sleeve, her breath hitching, that locket still dangling loose against her chest. They're alive, but you can see it in their eyes. They left something back there, something they'll never get back. Emergency crews are swarming now, fire trucks parked crooked across Bourbon Street, their lights flashing red and blue through the thinning mist. A firefighter in a bulky yellow coat waves them over, shouting, "You two all right? What happened in there?" Claude coughs, spitting black into the gutter, and manages a hoarse, "Gas line blew. That's all." The guy nods, scribbling something on a clipboard, not even looking up. "Yeah, figures. Chemical fire, ruptured pipe, crazy night, huh?" He moves off, barking orders to his crew, and that's it. Official story done. No questions about the whispers, the dead, or the hell they just survived. Sophie's staring at the ground, her fingers brushing that locket, and Claude just pulls her closer, steering her away from the chaos. The quarantine's lifting now, Cops are rolling back the barricades, metal scraping against pavement as the French Quarter groans back to life. News vans are parked down the block, reporters in bright jackets talking fast into cameras, hundreds missing after a chaotic Mardi Gras night. Authorities blame a freak gas leak. Claude catches a snippet as they shuffle past, his jaw tightening, but he doesn't stop. New Orleans doesn't blink at this stuff, another weird tale for the books, shrugged off like a bad hangover. Tessa's nowhere to be seen. She slipped out in the smoke, that cracked idol with her, leaving nothing but a bloody smear on the floor where she'd crawled. Claude doesn't mention her, but you can tell he's thinking it. She's gone, and whatever she took with her ain't done causing trouble. They're a few streets away near a quiet corner where the crowds haven't trickled back yet, when Sophie stops dead. The wind's kicking up, warm and damp off the river, rustling the beads still tangled in the gutters. She tilts her head like she's listening, and then this faint voice floats through. Just a whisper, soft and clear. "Mama, I'm home." It's Lily, no mistaking it, and Sophie's face softens, a small, sad smile tugging at her lips. "You're safe now, baby," she murmurs, her hand closing around the locket, holding it tight like she's sealing something shut. Claude's watching her, his breath catching, and for a second it's peaceful, like she's found some kind of closure. But then he glances down, and his stomach drops. The sun's climbing higher, throwing their shadows long across the cracked sidewalk, and Sophie's isn't right. It stretches too far, edges flickering, and there's this shimmer, like beads glinting in the dark, weaving through it. He blinks, rubs his eyes with a shaky hand, but it's still there, twitching like it's alive. "Sophie," he starts, voice low, but she's already moving again, tugging him along, her smile fading into something distant. He doesn't push it, not yet, but that image sticks with him, gnawing at the back of his mind. Weeks pass, and the city patches itself up. Bars reopen, jazz spills back into the streets, life rolls on. But down by the ruins of that club, locals start talking. Old guys nursing beers on porches, kids kicking cans along the curb. They swear they hear music at night. Not just any music, jazz, slow and mournful, drifting out of the rubble, led by this high, childish voice singing wordless notes. "Sounds like a little girl," one guy tells his buddy over a cigarette, flicking ash into the wind. "Gives me the damn creeps." Nobody's brave enough to check it out, though. Not after what happened. Out in the bayou, a fisherman's pulling his nets one morning when something glints in the mud. Sophie's locket, half buried under a tangle of swamp moss. He pries it open, curious, but it's empty. No picture, just the clasp snapped shut tight, sealed with that green muck. He tosses it back, muttering about tourist junk, and rows off, oblivious to the faint hum that ripples across the water as he leaves. Claude's a wreck by now. He's holed up in his cramped apartment above a dive bar, the kind with sticky floors and neon signs buzzing in the windows. He's barely sleeping, bags under his eyes, hands jittery from too much coffee and not enough rest. One night, he's digging through a box of old junk, looking for something to sell. When he finds it, raised sacks, sitting there untouched, no scratches, no ash, like it followed him home. He stares at it, heart pounding, and sets it on the table, telling himself he's imagining things. But then, deep in the night, it starts, a soft, mournful tune, drifting out of the horn, no one touching it. He bolts upright, sheets tangled around his legs, and watches as the keys move on their own, slow and deliberate. "Ray?" he whispers, voice cracking. But there's no answer, just that music, looping like a memory he can't shake. He can't take it. Next evening, he's out back, dousing the sacks with lighter fluid, the smell sharp in his nose as he strikes a match. It goes up fast, flames licking the metal, warping it into a twisted mess. He stands there watching it burn, the crackle drowning out the city noise, until it's just a pile of blackened scrap. But when he crawls back into bed, exhausted, that tune's still there, faint, echoing in the walls, like it's sunk into the bones of the place. He buries his face in his hands, muttering, "I'm done, man, I'm done." A few days later, he's walking down St. Charles, fog rolling in thick off the river, when he decides to check on Sophie. She'd been staying at this rundown hotel near the quarter, peeling paint, flickering vacancy sign, the works. He climbs the stairs, 2 at a time, and knocks on her door. Room 12, the one with the busted light overhead. No answer. He knocks again, harder, the sound bouncing down the empty hall. "Sophie? "You in there?" "Nothing." The manager, this greasy guy in a tank top, lets him in with a shrug. "Checked out yesterday, didn't say where." The room's bare. Bed made, no bags, no trace of her. Just a faint whiff of swamp mud lingering in the air, and her locket's gone. Claude steps back onto the street, fog curling around his legs, and pulls his jacket tight. "I tried," he whispers, more to himself than anyone, his voice swallowed by the damp air. He walks off, a hunched figure fading into the haze, a man broken by loss and loyalty, carrying ghosts he can't outrun. The bayou's quiet now, but you know it's not done. That curse is out there, whispering soft and patient, waiting for the next soul to stumble into its reach. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more creepy stories. Stay safe, and see you in the next nightmare.